Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Ite Namani.
And after the initial meeting, John and I had this idea. We were very young and idealistic. So we had an idea that we would do a photo essay about a quaint Indian village and make a cultural presentation that people could appreciate traditional life in India. So we thought this was a wonderful idea. We were beside ourselves with our own brilliance. But the problem was, of course, in India there are thousands upon thousands of villages. And we had no idea which one would be the most suitable for a story like that, a photo essay. So John said, well, Srila Prabhupada's from India, and he's traveled extensively. We should ask him where to go. So we went that morning back to Akashganga, and again into Srila Prabhupada's room. And John presented to him our idea. So Prabhupada looked at us. I'm sure we were flushed with the fervence and of our idea and the enthusiasm that comes with such a young age. And he said, wherever you go, they will simply cheat you and steal your cameras. So from our body language, we must have been crestfallen. We didn't say anything. And there was quite a pregnant pause. And he looked at us. And then he said, best that you go to Vrindavan and do your photo essay in Vrindavan. So some months later, we did that. Not right away, but maybe 4 or 5 months later, we actually did that. And probably the most remarkable thing about that pastime with Srila Prabhupada is that Srila Prabhupada had only seen me twice, and he knew nothing about me. And unfortunately, I came from an atheistic background. My parents were atheists, and until I went to the temple in New York, about a year or so before I met Srila Prabhupada, I had never been in any church or temple or any sort of religion, not even to see the stained glass. That's how bad it was. So he, by his instruction to go to Vrindavan, now looking back on that decades later, there was nothing more appropriate he could have said to me, because that month that we spent in Vrindavan was truly transformational for me. I would wander the streets, and everywhere you go, of course, there are temples, and even beyond the temples was the piety and the spirituality of the residents of Vrindavan. Everyone's saying Jai Radhe and has devotion foremost in their lives. So what can you say? That instruction of Prabhupada could not have been more appropriate.
In Vrindavan, 1972, October, I finally got a chance to see Srila Prabhupada. I hadn't seen him for 3 years because I always kept missing him. When I was down in Trinidad, he was in India. When I went to New York, he had just left New York. When I went to India, he had just left India. So finally, at this time, I got to see him. I remember him walking down the street in Vrindavan and thinking, of course I know that Srila Prabhupada is none different than his picture or his personal form. But I do remember thinking, it's so nice to see him. And we had a big reception at the Radha Damodar temple. And Prabhupada said, this reception, he said, it is not for me. It is for my foreign boys and girls. And he was encouraging us this way. He said, these young boys and girls are helping me. And he said, sorry dear? He said, she is helping me. And then he said, where's your husband? And I said, he's right here, Srila Prabhupada. And he said, why are you so skinny? I said, well, he just got over jaundice. And then Srila Prabhupada said what he should do to help his jaundice. Take some rock candy and put it in a glass of water, and the first thing in the morning drink it, and to boil green papaya. But when he kind of singled me out in this way, after not seeing him for a few years, I knew that he was very pleased by our preaching work I remember in San Francisco trying to please him by buying him some cloth. I remember trying to buy him a dhoti. I remember knitting him a pair of slippers. And I remember buying him a manga. And in each case, he was not pleased with the gifts I offered. So I knew that my offering was preaching.
You see, Prabhupada just opened the Gurukul in Vrindavan and opened a new building actually. The new building was constructed. The Vrindavan Gurukul was going on. The new building was inaugurated. And Srila Prabhupada was very happy with the new building, and he used to tell people that about the Gurukul building when the people came for his darshan. So one very important businessman came to see Srila Prabhupada from Delhi. He is Jai Dayal Dalmia, one of the biggest industrialists in India. So he came with his two daughters-in-law and their children. And he was a very old man at that time, and very nice and pious man actually. So Srila Prabhupada was telling him about the Gurukul education system. And then he asked him to send his grandchildren to the Gurukul. And he explained to him that the modern education system is simply meant for creating Sudras, how to get a good job. That's the purpose of education. But your children, your grandchildren, do not need to get a job, but they should actually become the leader of the society. And that's why he should actually send his grandchildren to the Gurukul. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that, see, the Gandhis, Indira Gandhi's sons, Nehru's grandchildren, coming from such a aristocratic family, such a noble family, but look at them, they have become rascals and rogues. And he said that, do you want your grandchildren to become like that? No. Train them up to become the leaders of the society, a real leader of the society. And in this way Srila Prabhupada actually explained. Now later on I got to know his son, the father of one of the grandchild, and he told me that at that time his father was so convinced that he was planning to send his son to the Gurukul. And I know the son, his name is Abhishek Dalmia. Although he didn't go to the Gurukul, but he keeps a sikha, I mean, the family is very, very pious, and it's unfortunate that he didn't send his son to the Gurukul, but I mean, you can see the potency of Srila Prabhupada's preaching. He is one of the richest men in India, and he was considering to send his grandson to the Gurukul.
I would always make sure, because Pishima trained me like this, that I would always stay very quiet and distant from Srila Prabhupada so I wouldn't disturb him. Because so much of the time we would be in direct contact with Srila Prabhupada in his house, doing the cleaning, doing the cooking, bringing him so many things, making his medicines. So I learned to never disturb Prabhupada in any way. But I saw that a lot of the other devotees, they were able to act in a very open manner with Prabhupada, and were always asking him questions and looked like they were joking with him. So I started to think, well, these devotees, they're so much more advanced than me because they get to have a closer relationship with Prabhupada. And I'm such a fool. Here I am, never asking Prabhupada any questions, just doing my service, and being very careful not to talk to Prabhupada. So maybe I should start being more friendly with Srila Prabhupada. So one evening I decided to try it out, and I brought Prabhupada in some sweets, and he immediately saw my change of personality and stopped me right then and there. So the next evening, I knew that I had done the wrong thing, and Prabhupada also let me know immediately that I shouldn't change my mode of service. So the next evening, Prabhupada was sitting in his room with Bhagaji and another god sister, and Prabhupada started talking to them, and he was telling them that he liked my service because I was always silent and hardworking. So Bhagaji immediately came out after talking to Prabhupada. He came here to the kitchen, and he repeated to me what Prabhupada had said, not knowing the plan of action I had tried the night before. So Prabhupada was letting me know through Bhagaji that he appreciated more the fact that I was silent and hardworking in my service instead of trying to become too artificially affectionate with Prabhupada.
In Vrindavan, this was some years later, of course, there was always a problem with ladies, you know, a proliferation of ladies coming to the Vrindavan guest house. And at one point, Prabhupada almost daily was discussing this problem, what to do with these ladies, especially the ones who were without a husband but had children. So sometimes we considered sending them to Mayapur, sometimes sending them back to America, sometimes we said, well, let them stay, or maybe... It was an ongoing quandary. Then one day, in the course of one of these discussions, Prabhupada said, on the one hand, we tell all our boys, don't marry, remain brahmachari. On the other hand, we tell all the ladies, you should marry. Every woman must have a husband. He said, this is a contradiction in our philosophy. He began to laugh. He said, it's an insoluble problem. It can't be solved.
I think another significant experience was when I went to India. I was sent to Vrindavan about a year and a half after I joined. And there was a surge of sannyas hype. Everybody was taking sannyas around 1975, 1976. And I remember Gargamuni, after he took sannyas, he came to Germany and he was pointing around at my husband, who was 29 or something, and we'd been married for a year and a half. He said, oh, and you're too old, you should take sannyas immediately. So then I was shipped off to India to assist Hemavati, whose husband took sannyas very shortly after. I didn't know anything about, I was so new in the movement, I didn't know what it means, all this. So anyway, I know Prabhupada came, and he wanted, Hansaduta said, yes, I'm determined I should take sannyas here at the Mayapur festival. And Prabhupada said, you cannot take sannyas unless your wife agrees. So he had this meeting, he called Hemavati to him, and he said, now you have to agree, the wife must agree that husband should take sannyas. And so Hemavati would say, but I don't agree that my husband and we are advanced enough to take sannyas. So, but she said, if you give my husband sannyas, Srila Prabhupada, I will accept it. So Prabhupada said, no, you have to agree. You cannot just, I cannot do it. You must agree. No, Srila Prabhupada, I don't agree that my husband is advanced, and I are advanced enough. No, but I accept. If you give him sannyas, I will just accept it. So this went on and on for 4 days. They were back and forth discussing it. She never agreed. And still, 1976 in the Mayapur festival, although there was no arrangement, in the sannyas arena, Hansaduta jumped in, and he was all with his dyed clothes, and he was all ready, and Prabhupada gave him sannyas. So then I was back in Vrindavan waiting with Hemavati, and we had no idea that he was doing this. She had no idea that he took sannyas. So anyway, the devotees all trickled back from Mayapur to Vrindavan, and as insensitive as we can be, they said, hey, you know what happened at the Mayapur festival? Your husband took sannyas. And she was absolutely hysterical. Hemavati was absolutely astonished because she had not agreed and it was just not expected. So anyway, she was in a rage and she went to Srila Prabhupada when he came after the Mayapur festival, and she stormed in his room and she said, "You know, Srila Prabhupada, now that my husband has taken sannyas, I hate everyone and I hate everything in this material world." So Prabhupada was silent for a few minutes. And after that, he said, "Oh, very good. Now you are making advancement."
I decided I would go out on the balconies of the guest house in Vrindavan and paint trees, landscapes. And I wasn't really thinking of Krishna specifically. But after I did the trees, I decided Krishna has to be here. So I put him in as an afterthought. And I put some boys in. So then I thought the painting was okay. I wanted to show it to Prabhupada. So I finally got an appointment with Prabhupada. I brought the painting in. It was like on a balcony that faced the alleyway there. There's a few balconies up in Prabhupada's quarters. And he looked at it for quite a while, and I was starting to get really nervous. He's looking and he's looking. Finally he said, "What is the idea?" And I started to feel real dumb. And I couldn't say anything. I just said, "Well, Prabhupada, Krishna is playing his flute on the banks of Yamuna, and there's some boys." And he said, "What is the idea again?" He said to me. I said, "Krishna's pastimes are, Krishna's unlimited," like that. He said, "Yes, Krishna is unlimited, but you are limited. Stick to the book." And he asked me what verse it was even before. He said, "What verse is it?" And I was like, I'd memorized hundreds of verses and I couldn't say anything. I said, "Well, there's some descriptions." Somehow or other, he didn't like that painting. There's no way around it. He said, "Stick to the book." And so I just wanted to see, I knew I'd been sentenced, but I didn't know for how long. So I said, can this picture ever be used for books, just to see how much he hated it? He just he didn't say never, he just kind of a non-committal.
The next one was in '74. I went to Vrindavan to see the devotees, see Krishna consciousness, and see Prabhupada. I did not join yet. There was almost nobody there. Just, I remember Brahmananda, Jamuna were there. And I stayed there for like maybe 2 weeks. Prabhupada was there, very peaceful. It was a very peaceful time, transcendental. And I was given the task to take Srila Prabhupada remnants after his prasad. I was sitting on the outside veranda. Prabhupada was sitting outside on his string bed with Kinshanadas, Krishnadas, Babaji Maharaj. He was speaking, laughing together. I was there every day, eating Srila Prabhupada remnants and cleaning his plate and his shower bucket and everything like that. So, Prabhupada called me in, and he asked me what I'm doing. So he told me, you should finish your studies. I was in allopathic medicine. So he said, you should finish these studies and take care of the devotees. So he was concerned with practical matters in this way. And then during the class, he gave. The class was about how the Bhaktivedantas gave mercy to the little Narada Muni as a little boy. And he explained that, during the rainy season, that's sage service is to give mercy like that. And Narada Muni, just, humble service, eating the remnants, cleaning their food, listening to that. And he said, just like this young French boy, he got my mercy. So, I feel like, of course, we all got Srila Prabhupada's mercy in some or other different ways. But, like many, of course, have no qualification to be a devotee. And as Prabhupada said, he created our pious activities, our qualifications. So for me, that was quite concrete way to exemplify this fact that Srila Prabhupada, made us aspiring devotees by giving us his mercy.
One of the big problems in those days was visas for Americans. At that time we virtually had no Indian devotees. Some were beginning to join, and 99% of our devotees were American. And they were all having visa problems. Constantly they had to go out of the country and come back. So this was a great source of anxiety to Prabhupada. And he personally met and deputed me to meet people to try and get the Indian government to give us some concession. So I went and saw the Home Minister, the Foreign Minister of India at that time, who was Mr. Vajpayee. And I went to Vajpayee with a plea that some concession be given to ISKCON devotees. And when I came back to Vrindavan that evening and gave Prabhupada the report of the meeting, Prabhupada said, one day this man will become more important. He'll hold a very important position. And a few years later, he became the Prime Minister of India.
Prabhupada had seen a Bhagavad Gita dance and a Pralambasura dance that we'd done here in Los Angeles, said we must come to India for the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. So when we got to Mayapur, we'd done one drama, and the way the audience was set up, where Prabhupada's Vyasa, we'd end up with our backs to the deities. Now, earlier, we had been told that was not acceptable, that the deity door should be closed, and so we had some argument with the authorities, but since they were GBC, we were just lowly little dancers and actors, we did it. So Prabhupada didn't see the performance, but he saw the pictures. So we were up in his quarters, and he was looking at the photographs of the performance, and he said, oh, back should not be to the deity, and so we tried to, instead of just saying, yes, Prabhupada, we tried to explain that we were told, yes, Krishna is all pervasive, therefore it was okay if we had our backs to him. Prabhupada got furious. He said, Krishna's all pervasive, then you should dance on the roof. Got very animated there.
Another time in Vrindavan, I was serving Srila Prabhupada on a few occasions when he was sickly. And I remember one time in the evening, we would, of course, set up his mosquito net, and he was not feeling well at all. I think that was the first time we had 24-hour kirtan in our movement at that time. So I would massage him in the evenings sometimes with Vicks Vapor Rub, actually. Prabhupada liked when I rubbed that on. So in Vrindavan, we're not supposed to step on even an ant in Vrindavan. You have to be very careful of the living entities there. They are not ordinary. So I'm sitting on Srila Prabhupada's bed inside the mosquito net, but somehow or another, one mosquito got inside the net. So I immediately saw it fly by, and I grabbed for it. And Prabhupada said, no. So I kept massaging. Then the mosquito landed on Srila Prabhupada, and I flicked it away. Srila Prabhupada turned to me and said, now catch it, he is attacking.
So one time in Vrindavan was the time of the mosquitoes. So we all got alert, and we all was told to be very careful, the servants in Prabhupada's quarter, to close perfectly the doors, so we don't want mosquitoes attack Srila Prabhupada. So one time, I will be so careful. So one time, I am coming. So for those who know Srila Prabhupada quarters, many of you, I am coming from his little kitchen by the garden and enter. So on the left there is Srila Prabhupada room, and on the right and straight, you can go in his darshan room. So I am coming. So I am a little after Prabhupada sleeping room, and there come out on my right Arisori. So Arisori blocked me to go, and he started to scream at me. What are you doing? You never close Prabhupada's door. You want Prabhupada to be attacked by the mosquitoes like this. And I was so careful to close the door. So I'm like this, you know, and you go like this, and you are stupid, you know, and scream and scream. So I'm like this. I'm trying to tell him, yes, yes, I promise you, I did close the door. Okay. So, suddenly, I feel such a strong, I don't know how to say English, poignet, hand, such a strong like this, not on my sari, on my hip. One hand is catching my hip, but so strong, and pull me like this. And who is that? Srila Prabhupada. And he come in front of me like this, he put me behind him, and he went to Arisori. So what now? Why are you speaking to her like this? What is this? You should not speak like this to her. And Srila Prabhupada started to defend me like this. And he got so angry. So, the first thing is that Prabhupada touched me. And he defended me. And he always defend the poor, the one who are, you know, women are nothing much. Like that. Oh, that was the unbelievable day, what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada had such a strong strength. You cannot imagine. Such strength.
So one morning I was sitting in front of Prabhupada's quarters, and suddenly Harisori come running out and said, there's one person that one could hear the flute playing somewhere in the guest house. That disturbed Prabhupada. Prabhupada told Harisori to tell me, because I'm the guard outside, go tell him to stop playing the flute. In Vrindavan, there's only one person playing the flute. So I had to go up and tell the guest, but I was a little bit forceful, but I had to tell the guest that flute playing has to be stopped.
But one time in Vrindavan, I don't know if it was recorded. Some of these things, most of them recorded, but sometimes batteries ran out and stuff. So it was the opening, 1975. So this morning walk, I don't think this first part was recorded. I've never heard it when I listened, but so it was the opening, and it was a big mess, you know. And Prabhupada would come out every morning and he would be telling people what to do. Like one time he took his cane and he was measuring something and he told them how to fix the gate and all kinds of little things like that. So out in front, they had built some kind of little, supposed to become a shop, and then naturally some people moved in. So he was telling, get those people out of here, a couple of days in a row. And then one day he asked the temple president, why they're still here? And he said, I told somebody to. The Prabhupada just shouted, I mean, I was scared. He shouted so loud, he said, you stupid, how can I? you know, I told you to do it. How can I run this society with stupid people like you? I mean, really shocking that he would talk like that. But then he turned around and he just started, he talked to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and he just said, do you want to hear my theory about the moon? Completely no anger, nothing left over. And he said, of course. So Prabhupada said, the moon is hot fire, he said, but it's covered by a cold atmosphere, therefore the moonlight is cool. What would the scientists say about that? So then Tamal Krishna picked right up on it, because he was experienced, and started saying what the scientists say. He said, you know, this basic stuff. They say it's reflecting the sunlight, it's glowing, and Prabhupada looked at the road, there was a dirt road, he said, why, that's not glowing. And then he said something, Prabhupada finally said, why aren't you glowing? But he just completely changed. He'd become very jolly and joking.
Another time when we were in India, Prabhupada was actually quite upset because some of his, or one godbrother or some godbrothers were critical of our sannyasis because they didn't speak Sanskrit or they couldn't read Sanskrit. Prabhupada said, where does it say anywhere that one must be able to read Sanskrit to go back to Godhead? Where does it say that? He was quite adamant about this. And he said, my disciples may be, it was at the same time, he said, my disciples may be disqualified in so many ways. He said, but one qualification they have, he was speaking to some Indian people in Vrindavan who were gathered in his room. He said, but one qualification they have, he said, whatever I tell them to do, they will do it. They have full faith in whatever I say. So, I mean, I appreciated the point because compared with the gentlemen who were sitting there, and there were many gentlemen and saintly persons, we certainly were not qualified in so many ways in terms of etiquette. And Prabhupada in fact said that. He said, I know often they make mistakes in terms of etiquette. He said, but whatever I tell them to do, they will do. So our good fortune was that we were following the Lord's pure devotee. And, you know, despite all disqualifications, that one qualification surpassed every good qualification anyone else might have.
This was again in 1974, maybe in August, after Janmashtami. Prabhupada was again recovering from his sickness. And we used to cook for Prabhupada, and then after cooking for Prabhupada, we would make something for his servants and secretaries to eat. There were 3 of them that we were cooking for that time. I think it was Brahmananda Swami, Bhagavan, Shrutakirti, maybe a few others. So we would bring that prasadam for them around to the front, and then a servant would come and drop off their plates, and we'd have to wash them all out here in the garden because there was no water in the house then. We'd have to draw all the water from the front well. So I was still in cleaning the kitchen up, and the plates of the servants had been left outside of the kitchen, my not knowing it. And the devotees hadn't finished their prasadam that day, so there was still some remnants on their plates. And Prabhupada came into the kitchen to go to his bathroom, and he saw these plates, and he called me, and he said, what is this? And I saw the plates. Normally I would have taken them and washed them right away. I said, oh, that's a mistake, Prabhupada. I was supposed to clean them. And he looked quite displeased. So immediately Prabhupada walked through his house to the front room where his secretaries lived. And seeing that Prabhupada was displeased, I picked up the plates and came the back way to show Brahmananda what Prabhupada had seen and how he wasn't happy about it. So simultaneously, Prabhupada came from one door, and I came from another door with the plates in my hands. And Prabhupada called me in and had me show them the plates with the prasadam on it. And he explained to them that no matter who you are, no matter whether you're GBC or anyone, once you touch the plate, whatever is on that plate, you have to finish it because it's prasadam. You shouldn't leave any prasadam on the plate. So Brahmananda, he said, jokingly, he said, but Prabhupada, I had burped. So I thought that after you burp, you couldn't finish it. So anyway, the point Prabhupada was making, that whatever he said you can take off first. If they've given you too much, before you start, you take off. And that doesn't have to be completed. But whatever you have on your plate when you start, you have to finish that prasadam. So that he was telling to the topmost members of our society, the GBCs and personal secretaries, they had to finish their prasadam. Just like a father, he was instructing them.
The first time I was in Vrindavan, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and he would take his morning walk every morning. And there was a crew of us. I was just a newcomer. I didn't know anything very much at that time about cleaning his rooms. And it was very fastidious. And the girl that was in charge, she knew every little thing, every tiny thing to do. And there was a short time, he took a short walk. So she told me, oh, you can do the upstairs where his little desk is, and sometimes he took prasadam up there. She goes, because that's just the tiniest, smallest little area, so you can do that part. And I was nervous, but she said, all you have to do is the desk. You don't even have to do the floor. Someone else will come do that. You just do the desk, and remember to put everything back the exact way you saw it, and clean it perfectly. So I got up there, and I started getting a little bit nervous because it was like a math problem or something, and I was so nervous I couldn't quite remember where everything went. I took it up, and then by the time it was time to put it down, I couldn't quite remember where it was supposed to go, but I was doing my best, and I was dusting everything, and I was starting to sweat, getting more and more nervous, and there was quite a lot of things on that desk, and I was doing as good as I could, as well as I could, and then at one moment, she said, oh, time, Prabhupada's coming, everyone down. So I had a terrible feeling like I hadn't really had even a good look at what I had done or not done. And I felt incomplete, but anyway, I had no choice. I ran down the stairs, and then I was standing by the side of his room as he went into his room. And I noticed with a terrible sense of shock that he didn't go to any of his downstairs rooms. He went straight upstairs. And then I looked up there, and I could see him going and sitting down at his desk. And within 1 minute, there was this loud, Haribol! Who has cleaned this room? And so Devi Shakti ran up there, and then she came back down and she said, Mula, you really messed up. And I was like, I know, what did I do? And she said, well, Prabhupada noticed immediately that you had put his glass of water in not quite in the exact place, and the little tiny silver cup top that goes on top of his water, you forgot to dust that. So I was amazed at Srila Prabhupada that of all the things that were done in that room, that he had that kind of ability to immediately find that. And ever since then, I've always remembered that standard of cleanliness. And whenever I think I'm cleaning for Srila Prabhupada or for the deities, I remember that, and I know that he's looking and he can see every little thing that might be missed.
One time I was serving Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and as his custom was, after he would give evening darshan, he would distribute prasadam. So as a servant, he would nod, and you would run up, and usually had a jar of sweet balls on his desk. So I came up, he was giving darshan in the evening, Brijvasis were there, so many were there, and he nodded. So I went up, and I opened the jar, and there were ants all over the sweet balls. So I said, Srila Prabhupada, the ants are eating the sweet balls, thinking I couldn't pass them out. Srila Prabhupada looked at me and said, it is okay, they do not eat very much.
At another time in 1976, Gopavinda Pal Prabhu had asked us to guard Srila Prabhupada's door in Vrindavan, which was a great honor to be able to guard Srila Prabhupada's door. At the same time, no one ever thought Srila Prabhupada would come out and say anything or have any conversation. We were rank and file devotees. No big guns, no one who was in a GBC meeting or made any decisions, especially at that time. Rank and file Prabhus. And so Srila Prabhupada was in his rooms in Vrindavan, and it was the time for all the devotees to go to the Fogel ashram for prasadam, 12:30, 1 o'clock. I was sitting on the porch. I didn't know what Prabhupada's rooms were like at that time. Neither did I know if any other servants were there. And all of a sudden there was a buzzer from inside the room. And I kept reading. It was the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought, this is wonderful. I'm in Vrindavan. I'm reading the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada's in his room. He just rang the buzzer. Some servant from somewhere is going to go and take care of it. You know, everything's so wonderful in Vrindavan. And all of a sudden, within a few seconds, Srila Prabhupada was at the screen door, there in his quarters in Vrindavan. And I immediately stood up. I went to offer obeisances, and Prabhupada said, I am an old man, and I am ringing, and you are a young man, and I must come to you? And my heart, I looked at Prabhupada, I had no idea. I tried to explain, you know, that I was new to this job. I had no idea what was the room. And Prabhupada said, I am the spiritual master, and you are the disciple, and I must come to you? And again, I couldn't even say anything. I was struck. Prabhupada said, I am the master, and you are the servants, and there are 6 of you. I couldn't even understand what Prabhupada was talking about. There are 6 of us. And I must come to you? And then Prabhupada said, go get Pusta Krishna. So I knew Prabhupada went back in his room, and I knew adrenaline was flowing like anything. I had barely ever had any association with Srila Prabhupada face to face. And Srila Prabhupada was, this was one of the first encounters, and I had blown it major. So I immediately was ready to run to go get Pusta Krishna Maharaj at the Fogal Ashram. But I realized that if I left my guard, my post as guard, that something could happen and I would be responsible. So I was waiting for some devotee to come by. One devotee came by. I yelled at him, please come quickly. We've got to get Pusta Krishna. Prabhupada needs him. And unfortunately, he said, no entiendo, Prabhu. He spoke only Spanish. At the time, I didn't speak too much Spanish. And the buzzer rang again. So I ran into Srila Prabhupada's quarters. I had never been there before in Vrindavan. I offered obeisances, and as I'm offering obeisances, Prabhupada said, where's Pusta Krishna? So I immediately stood up before I finished my obeisances because I didn't want Prabhupada to have to wait for my answer. I was feeling very foolish. I didn't know what to do, which way to go, what to say. And I told Srila Prabhupada, he's at the Fogal Ashram taking prasad, and Prabhupada said, go in the back and get one of the other servants. So as I walked in the back, there are 2 doorways. One leads to the back of Vrindavan, Prabhupada's rooms in Vrindavan. One leads to the servants' quarters. And unfortunately, I entered the servants' quarters. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, the other door. And I realized then that one should feel like a fool in front of the spiritual master, but one shouldn't act like a fool before the spiritual master. So I went and I got, Harisari was there in the back, preparing some prasadam, doing some devotional service for Srila Prabhupada. And I told him, Srila Prabhupada needs you immediately, you've got to come quickly, it's an emergency. He said, okay, go around through this little doorway, go around the front again, and keep guarding, and I'll tell you what to do, I'll go take care of everything. I'll go talk to Srila Prabhupada. So I went to my post, and I was still reading the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, but this time my eyes were bugged out of my head. I couldn't even read a word. I was looking at the pages, but my mind was reeling in complete anxiety that I had offended Srila Prabhupada. I hadn't pleased him. What an opportunity. And here I had blown it in service of my spiritual master. So I was actually crying. I think physically I was crying as Srila Prabhupada came out. I offered dandabats on the stairs, 3-4 stairs going to the gate, leading outside to go to Bhagaji's across the alley in Vrindavan. And as I'm offering obeisances, offering dandabats, Srila Prabhupada's coming down the stairs. I didn't even plan it. As I'm coming up, I was crying, my mind was reeling that, Prabhupada, please forgive me. I'm so sorry that I offended you or didn't know how to act properly. And as I stood up, hands folded, Srila Prabhupada looked over and said, Jai, to me. I knew it was to me, Prabhupada said, Jai. And I knew at that moment, all the anxiety, all the fear, all the tears were all washed away. I became completely joyous because I knew that Srila Prabhupada knew my heart. He knew my intentions and that he was forgiving me for whatever offense that I had committed. And then Srila Prabhupada went on to Bhagaji's, and I was in ecstasy for the rest of that day at least.
So we were sitting there next to the cooker. At that point, we had just two, those gas Indian burners had two flames in the gas bottle, and we would make a bucket of coal fire to do his chapatis, because they would come out better on that. Sat down, had the tiffin with all the spices and all the vegetables. Prabhupada sat down. In the meantime, he just kept casually talking to Bhagaji in Hindi. And so I had the tiffin. He put the spice in, this spice in, that spice in, and this vegetable in, this vegetable in. And he looked at Bhagaji and he said, so simple, still they cannot do. And then we just sat there and he was chatting with Bhagaji. And so as he was chatting, Palika was concerned that it was too hot. So she would turn the burner down and he would chat, and he'd look and probably turn it back up. Didn't say anything and chat. And then 3 minutes went by and Palika would turn it down again. And this happened 3 times. And he turned down, he goes, Hari Baba, why are you messing? So, we kind of just stood back, and then he looked at Bhagaji and he said, these 2 burners, he said, I can make, he said, in 45 minutes, I can make full prasad for 100 people. Bhagaji looked and said, impossible. And Prabhupada said, I will bet you, and Bhagaji said, yeah, khichdi. And Prabhupada said, no, full prasad in 45 minutes. And they started speaking in Hindi then again. And Bhagaji said, impossible. And Prabhupada said, I will bet you 1 lakh of rupees. And Bhagaji started to laugh, and he said, Prabhupada, if I win or lose, you will take it anyway. And then he just stood up without another word and said, it's finished. And then he walked out, and the kind of energy just went right back with him, right out the door.
What I was talking to you before we started recording, I was mentioning how when I had jaundice or hepatitis, contagious, it's jaundice that you get from water, basically, or from contaminated food. But in India, it's not uncommon. And I had jaundice, and I went to Srila Prabhupada, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I told him I had jaundice. I said, so what should I eat? And Srila Prabhupada said, only take Krishna prasadam. And I was just, oh, okay, Srila Prabhupada, fine, but what shouldn't I eat? And he said, don't take anything that's not Krishna prasadam. I just thought, that was like classic Prabhupada, kind of the way he could just answer in the most simple way. But what was there in that answer is Prabhupada's amazing wit, his extremely, dry sense of humor, but very, very deep humor. Like, I remember when we were walking in Vrindavan, and someone said to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, these devotees from Los Angeles, they're only taking Ekadasi preparations. And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, advancement, like that. And then everyone crowded close to him. Advancement, Srila Prabhupada? And he said, yes. And then somebody was trying to play the pundit, says, but Srila Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavad Gita that rains come from sacrifice, and grains are produced from rains, and all living entities subsist on food grains. And Srila Prabhupada said, his answer is, he said, very straight-faced, that is for those who are passing 7. So he said, that is for animals. And then, so everyone, that's amazing. You know, so then when Prabhupada got to Los Angeles, I wasn't there, but I heard the whole thing, and that Prabhupada had said about only animals, basically the summary is only animals need to take food grains. But I thought, Prabhupada's putting them on and they don't know it. He's just completely playing with them and they have no idea. And then he went to Los Angeles and then they said, Srila Prabhupada, these persons, they only take Ekadasi preparations. It was the same references that happened in Vrindavan on the walk. And then Srila Prabhupada said, oh, why is that? And they said, and then they were shocked and they said, but Srila Prabhupada, they say that only animals need to take food grains. And he said, I take food grains, do I look like an animal? So, but I was so positive when I heard this incident. And I knew something of Srila Prabhupada. I think Prabhupada's playing with them. He's putting them on and just in a very straight, you know, way of speaking. They have no idea that he's joking with them. And I saw that. I saw Prabhupada's humor on many occasions, and it's not like a rowdy kind of humor. It's a very philosophical and you know, almost like he could say this and just very, very wonderful sense of humor. Extremely, you know, charming, witty, everything, but you would not see it in a boisterous way.
When I first met Srila Prabhupada, I was a member of the Namhata party in Japan. And it was in 1975, I believe, and the Vrindavan temple was under construction. And we were collecting for that, and supplying Prabhupada with the funds for the construction of Vrindavan, Mayapur, and Bombay. So one time I had the opportunity, Guru Kripa Maharaj took me along with him to India to bring some Lakshmi to Srila Prabhupada. And this was cash that we had collected in Japan. So we went to Srila Prabhupada's office and we came in, offered our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, and then Guru Kripa Maharaj put this briefcase with the money into on Srila Prabhupada's desk for him. And I can't remember Prabhupada exactly what happened, Prabhupada opened it or what. At some point anyway, the amount had to be revealed. So Guru Kripa Maharaj said, there's $108,000 in there, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, thank you very much. 109 would be better. So when it came to matters of Lakshmi, to be engaged in Krishna's service, I think Srila Prabhupada was showing us that auspicious numbers are very auspicious, but more is even more auspicious.
So I argued with him daily in Vrindavan. Nicely, I objected. So Prabhupada, they don't want help, the temple presidents don't want me to come in America, they come around their temples, they shun us. The brahmacharis all want to go with us because we're fired up and it's natural to travel and see the world instead of sit in one place. And the temple presidents don't want the sannyasis coming, and we're living in the van. Like this time I told him when we collected a lot of money. So Prabhupada said, yes, that was such good, you should go do it again. I said, Srila Prabhupada, you know, we are collecting this money, 18 hours a day we're working. Srila Prabhupada, 18 hours a day. Our process is 24 hours. So there's no question of getting around it. But this is in that, finally he told me, anasrita karma phalam karyam karotiya. It's a sannyasi, 6th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, verse 1. A sannyas is he who works as he's obligated, and he's not attached to the result. So actually Vaishnava sannyasi is different, because a Vaishnava generally takes sannyas out of bhava, or love for Krishna. There's nothing to renounce. We already know it is all illusion, it is all the Lord's play. So what we are renouncing? We are only renouncing our illusion. So what is sannyas? But out of ecstasy it is taken for service. But if you're not mature like we were not, but out of to expand this movement, Srila Prabhupada gave many people this position, even if it lasted 6 months or a year, to help other conditioned souls, to do something for some time. That is our good and their good. So he gave instruction like this, to get this money because these temples should be there. And that was the order. And they are still there, therefore it is a divine, and the collection was successful. It was not done with ego or trying to get on the chart sheet of Rameshwar. It was there for the satisfaction of His divine grace. We did not have our names read in the temple every morning. It was hard, 7 days a week. All the devotees that assisted in that are eternally benefited. But this is our bhakti yoga process. That Guru is everything. As you get more into this science of bhakti, which Srila Prabhupada came to give, he did not come here to make a personality cult. He came to teach the science of how to see God. Not that he will see and we will not see. You know how he used to say? People used to say, are you seeing Krishna? So the Prabhupada said, so if I am, what good is it doing you? Are you seeing? And I am eating and you are not eating, what good it is doing you watching me eating? So we have to eat. And he came to give us. And if we do not get it, we are the big loser. We are faithless. If our faith increases to such an extent, we will see Krishna immediately. So that is what he has given us. And as we go with this world is such a big place. But gradually it comes to the devotee that there's only, your vision is this. Only the lotus feet of the Guru is left. Prabhupada's feet is left. Nothing there. But we see he's given that science for us.
Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanapano Anilo Premadana Koruna Prachu